Let's give a big hand for the Taxify founder, Martin Villig.
So, what Ragnar said about LIFT99 and about connecting and empowering founders isn't only talk, it's something that's really true. And Karl Kotkes is somebody who's a really great example of that, I think. Karl is 23 years old, founded a company called Veriff. When Veriff tried to go to Y Combinator, I guess a year or so ago now, it went really horribly and they said no. And Karl was really at his wit's end. And the story goes that essentially Ragnar said, "Come on, Karl, you have to try harder." And while being on a beach somewhere on a foreign island, Ragnar managed to help convince and settle the issues with Karl going to Y Combinator with his company Veriff. And a couple of months ago, Veriff announced their Series A round of almost $8 million. Karl is 23 now, by the way. So I think that LIFT99 shows again and again and again, and they don't pay me to say this, but shows again and again and demonstrates that the mission that they stand for is something they really execute on. And that's why I'm super excited today to say that things have come full circle, and this show, Liftoff, is officially brought to you in part by Veriff, online identity verification with superpowers. And I think that is worthy of a little bit of confetti. You can do it. I believe in you.
Money is flying.
This is what it's like when you raise $8 million. Money just falls from the sky. So yeah, I'm super proud to get to collaborate with Veriff, and I know that this show isn't possible without that kind of support. And when we went and we said, okay, if we want to do the show big and we want to go international and take it abroad, that it's not going to be possible without that kind of support, but we didn't want to take just anybody. And so we found the startup in Estonia that we thought connected best with this brand and this idea of connecting people, and that was Veriff. So be sure to check them out, and thank you so much, Karl. I'm sure you're watching right now. Martin, welcome to the stage.
Hello, good evening.
Good evening. Man, I can hear 1,000 of you. It's going to be in my nightmares. You've seen the show come a long way. Do you remember the first episode, actually?
Yes. I think it wasn't too far away, maybe this spring?
Yeah, it was 4 months ago, I think. We went from a lapel mic on a desk to sitting in Kyiv in front of 100 people.
Yeah. But yeah, I think you're doing quite great job. You have interviewed quite several good founders, and even now expanding to abroad.
I'm trying my best here. Thank you for noticing. Martin, you're a pretty interesting guy yourself. Give yourself some credit. You are a co-founder of a billion-dollar unicorn company now. And before we talk about that, I wanted to talk about the 3 bankruptcies. One of the interesting things about Martin to me when we first spoke was the fact that it wasn't all success, and that a lot of resilience, as always, was necessary. So maybe a little bit of intro into your humble beginnings is...
So yeah, I have been entrepreneurial for basically as long as I can remember. So even if I was 7, 8 years old, I went first time to Sweden to meet my aunt, and I was there a few weeks, and still being a Soviet, we lived in Soviet Union, so by that time, yeah, I was 7, 8 years old, and in Tallinn we didn't have anything to sell on stores, and when I went to Stockholm, everything was on sale, so basically normal like now. But me as a Soviet kid, I didn't have any money, and then I was thinking that, okay, how can I get some money? And my aunt lived in a residential area of small houses, and I got an idea that maybe they have the, what do you call it, the cans and bottles and stuff.
Okay.
So I went actually asked the neighbors that do you have any bottles, and then it came out that all of these people have garage, like half of the garage full of cans and bottles. And I just asked that maybe I can get them, and I took them to shop, and that's what I was stealing basically 2 weeks when I was there. I was just making money, and then finally I could buy a tennis racket and a bunch of Legos and some Adidas sneakers and then a few of the stuff. And when I came back home, I was like really proud that I made some first money. So that was really early on. But in later stage in high school, I was doing, I was a DJ, or I arranged...
DJ Valdak.
Yeah, so I started playing music, but I didn't like it very much, so I smoothly went to organizing events, not playing music, so I let my classmates play the music, and my girls from my class, they were selling tickets, and I was just trying to arrange it. And when I went to university, I started my first company in the first year. It was about websites. It was in 1998, before the previous, or maybe the first internet bubble. And we also founded the first Estonian internet portal. If you know, Yahoo was the first portal in US. We founded the first local portal in Estonia. And this company was acquired about 1.5 or 2 years after founding by the local Estonian IT company that was listed on a stock exchange. It was a computer manufacturing company. And it was in pretty bad shape. So one VC fund bought the company and wanted to turn it around, and they thought, let's turn into IT, let's turn it into internet company, because it was internet bubble. And so they bought our IT company, or our web company and portal. And so in my second course in university, I became the director of the listed company.
Not bad. So you started out as a Soviet Union recycling man.
Yeah.
Humble beginnings. Okay, so we got recycling, we got DJ Valdek, and then event management extraordinaire.
And websites and building stuff.
And then second year uni, acquired by a stock listed company. And then...
The stock price went quite up because the same company was listed in Tallinn Stock Exchange and in Frankfurt Stock Exchange. It had double listing. And for some strange reason, German people started to buying the stock. So it went from 15 to 20 to some 60 in very short time. And I thought, whoa, that's very easy, how your money grows. And I didn't sell anything. Just one of the co-founders we had sold a bit. But basically the last stock I sold was on 19 cents. So because the stock was going down again during the internet bubble. So I basically made about maybe 5,000–6,000 euros out of the whole journey. But at some point I was, I don't know, close to $1 million on paper, but it was all gone. So it was quite a surprise. So yeah, I have seen it all.
That must have hurt actually a little bit.
I was so young, it didn't hurt that much. I bought a used car for this 5,000, and I was happy. So I got a car, and that was fine. It was a valuable experience.
Okay, what do you think it is about you as a kid that kind of inspired this proactivity, or like, I mean, not every young dude in university is like super eager to get a company listed on the stock. I mean, maybe they're eager to, but they're not like executing on that, you know? Is there something special about Martin Villig that your childhood was particularly entrepreneurial?
Actually, it wasn't. And if I look at my parents as well, my mother is a teacher and my father has been employee most of the time. He hasn't founded any companies. So yeah, I think it's just my personality. So that even when I was young, I was always making a small shop and selling my stuff what I didn't need. So I think it's part of my part of my genes, or not genes, but part of my personality. Yeah.
And then at some point you were with Skype.
Yeah. So this stock listed company went bankrupt in 2001 because the computer section was really badly managed,
the bubble,
and the bank had given loans and we couldn't pay it back. The internet side was profitable, but it wasn't enough profitable. So the total loan when we got to the company was about 12 million, We managed to clear out about half of it, but in 2001 the bank said that, okay, it's enough. The 5 million loan was out there and they declared the company bankrupt. So that was the first bankrupt experience. And then I went to work for Tallinn Stock Exchange for 4 years, and then after that I joined Skype because everyone was going to Skype in 2005 and 2004, 2005.
Huh. But there was another company in the middle that was after Skype.
After Skype, yeah.
After Skype, you tried to kind of collaborate with Skype, and
yes. So I was in Skype 2 years. I was leading the web backend team, which was doing the self-service and the payment part. So all the way that you paid money to Skype, then my team was doing that. But in 2 years, we were acquired by eBay, and the company grew from 60 people when I joined to 650 in 2 years. And we got acquired, and we become the part of the listed company, so everything went to quarterly reports. So I don't know, if you run your own company, you can do whatever you want, but if you're a listed company, everything goes around quarterly reporting. So the budgeting, the costs, the things, and it went really crazy. So at some point, we just needed to spend the money last week of the quarter, whatever, even do a drinking party with a team, but we just needed to spend the money. Otherwise, some investor would look at your budget and see that why are you not spending the money you predicted? And if you're not spending, you're not innovating. So we needed just to spend the money in the engineering team.
So you had to drink more.
Yeah, whatever we had to do in the end of the quarter just to spend it so that we were equally on the same level as the budget. So in listed companies, you see things like that. So it's not really normal. And I thought that the company is too big for me and I want to do something on my own.
And was this the one where the way you pitched it to me was you tried to put Skype in the TV?
Yes.
That was the same project?
That wasn't the one I left Skype for. So 1 year I did another startup, which is still operating but not very successful.
Okay.
And then the second company, the problem with the first one was that I left Skype. We had 4 co-founders, but none of the 3 other co-founders wanted to leave their job and join the startup. So I was working 1 year alone, and the other guys all kept their jobs and were telling me that, yeah, do this, do that. And they worked part-time, but none of them were willing to take the risk.
The best kind of co-founders.
And then, yeah, after 1 year, we reached to revenues about 60,000, 70,000 a year. But yeah, still, I decided that I don't want to work alone, and I took another job in another startup.
Huh.
And then the second one was that we tried to put Skype into the TV sets, but we failed also in about 1 year, because at first the Skype API was not ready how to put it to TV, and the second thing was that on the side, Skype didn't tell us, but they were cooperating with Samsung, Panasonic, and a few other big guys, and they did it on the side. On the same time, we were in Asia and trying to sell the idea to all the smaller manufacturers. So yeah, about in 1 year, we ran out of money, and we had to fire people. We got some salaries unpaid, and in that company, we had the engineering team actually in Beijing, China. So we have 6 engineers in China and some team in Estonia. So it was quite long distance setup.
None of these things were like small in a way. It seems like you've never failed instantly. You're really good at like clinging on for a while.
Yeah, we spent 1 year to burn $1 million.
Oh, okay. I mean,
it's not that easy to burn money. So
yeah, okay.
It's much more difficult to find a business model that works.
You've got to shoot it out of confetti guns. That's the way to get rid of it. And then there's kind of the big story at some point begins shortly after this. And that is the story of Taxify. And I think there's a lot of, the story's been told quite a few times now. So my goal today was to get at some pieces that might be a little bit unique. And one of them that I only kind of heard whisperings of was that the idea of Taxify actually all started in Kyiv. Is that rumor true?
Yes, so I think if you look at overall, if you look at things at school, what you study, then mathematics, physics, geography, most of the things are taught same way in all the countries. But one area that is a bit different country by country is history. And that means that people have different views on history. So I'll give you my view on how the company started, and probably other guys would give their view. But yeah, basically I was in Kyiv in 2012 doing Garage 48 hackathon here. I was mentoring together with Ragnar. And then we needed to take taxi. And locals said that if you take taxi from a street, you most probably get cheated as a tourist. So there is a web service to order a taxi, and they even give you 10% of discount. So we tried that service, and it worked really well. And yeah, then I went back home and saw that, well, there's no such service in Tallinn, and then we started thinking about Taxify with my brother.
Okay, but not everybody accepts this story as the truth, or what?
Yeah, Markus maybe leaves the first part out. He just says that we had a problem with taxis in Tallinn, which is also true. But yeah, that's...
Markus approves that story, by the way.
No,
because we was just yesterday in Bucharest, and he said this is exactly how it was. So don't worry, your brother is also accepting the story.
I mean, it depends on the audience, if it's recorded or not, or if it's investors. Sometimes you just need a shorter story. That's a longer one.
Huh. So, maybe there's even a lesson there in that, because I mean, it wasn't that you took that idea and came and copied it exactly. I don't think you guys obviously...
We had actually obvious challenges with the idea, because the service here was working on the Nokia phones. Not smartphones, but Nokia phones, and it was built on a SIM toolkit. If you know, you can program the SIM cards, and they have menus. You click one menu opens, you click two. So it was really working on these very, very simple phones. And we initially started to look for developers in Estonia who could build stuff on the smart or SIM cards. We couldn't find any developers. And then we were like, okay, we need to rethink the idea. And then roughly same time we saw that the smartphones started to get more widespread. Of course, most of the taxi drivers didn't have it. Very few had smartphones, because it's still, during that time, maybe the cheapest smartphones costed 300 euros, and that's not something that you as a taxi driver would buy right away. So yeah, and then the idea evolved to actually a smartphone app.
What was the kind of from your perspective, what were the early days like? Because I guess you had this idea, you brought it, and kind of you're like, I've always wanted to do something with Markus. What was because this was kind of your first project together in a way too, right?
Yeah, we tried to do also one project in education, like the mobile interface for the M school or mobile school. There is a desktop site in Estonia, but for years it only was on desktop only and no mobiles. So we thought that we'll do mobile interface, but we were not able to convince the guys to do it. So we dropped that idea. And then, yeah, we started looking into this Taxify idea. And initially, we didn't have that much money to invest, because I had used lots of my savings in the previous startups after Skype that was failing. So I didn't have too much savings left. So, and then, yeah, then we started to apply for the government grant, but the government there was different European funding grants you can apply, and we got the reply that we are a transport company, and transport companies don't get any support. We tried to say that we are an IT company, a platform company, but they didn't understand. They thought it's a transport business.
And this was the beginning of the legislation, or what?
The legislation came a bit later,
yeah.
But yeah.
So you brought the idea back, and you're like, you tried this other thing, and then you come to Taxify. And what was your role in the very early days? Because Markus tells this story of him like hustling super hard, getting in the taxi cabs, shoving business cards in people's pockets, basically.
So during that time, I was working at Fortumo, which is one of the well-known Estonian startups doing carrier billing for mobile games and other things. So I just recently was joining Fortumo and helped them on Asian operations and India, and which was the experience I gained from this Skype to TV project, where I was touring in Asia trying to sell stuff to the TV companies. And And then, I was advising Markus besides my Fortuma work, but I was also doing street sales as he was doing. So,
Okay.
so that was somewhat similar. Of course, he was doing it full-time, I was doing it part-time.
Okay.
So I was hands-on advisor at start.
Whose like success rate was better at onboarding drivers? Did you track this? It would have been a great competition.
We didn't track it that much, but of course, what we initially saw was majority of drivers were declining because some of them were saying that you are so young, you don't know anything about the transport. Why should I join you? Then some other guys have tried to build similar platform, but they have failed. So I would say that probably 8 out of 10 drivers were just declining right away. One guy was so-so, and maybe one guy was saying that, okay, I'll give it a try. So the decline ratio was really big. So as usually, when you try to do sales work and you actually don't have a product,
How
so
often-
you just sell a vision.
How often did you get like, you're crazy, get out of my car?
Quite often, probably. But yeah, we used all the different methods. Even I took my bike and I was driving around the residential area. And when I saw some taxi cars standing in front of the houses, I was just putting the business cars between the window and just saying that join Taxify and get extra jobs. So we invented all kinds of different things how to get drivers. So it was one-on-one sales, it was sharing materials, it was putting stickers on the street. So we tried to do we even painted my father's car and put it on next to the highway, and we got the parking ticket because the car was not allowed to stand there, but it was also like join Taxify. So we did all kinds of guerrilla marketing things because we didn't have much money to spend.
You made a billboard out of your dad's car.
Yes.
That's brilliant.
Yeah. So it was really cheap, very old Ford car, but it was good enough so we can put a sticker on the side.
Huh. One thing that's really, I feel like the early days are the ones that are super defining for a startup because it's kind of like where the foundations are laid. And especially hearing Markus's story as he's on the F2F tour right now and doing stuff with Lyft as well. The one part of the story that I'm interested to hear from you is the role of your parents in those early days, because they played a really kind of key role in getting maybe the first little push off the ground.
Yes, so as lots of taxi drivers in Tallinn, they speak Russian and they don't speak Estonian, and Markus is the young generation guy who doesn't speak Russian. So he speaks very good English, but very little Russian. So we had problems of communicating and talking to these Russian drivers. So even when we convinced them to join, then still we needed to do document verification and contracts and things like that. So then my parents, who were fluent in Russian, then they took part and they onboarded the Russian drivers. So they were like part-time operation managers at first. So
they were actually doing sales as well.
I'm not sure how much sales they were doing, but they were more doing the onboarding. So my father was working in a construction company as a project manager, and drivers went to his office, and he went out, checked their documents, activated their account in a system, and then he went back to his job and continuing the job in the construction company. So it was somewhat a family business, and then my mother was at home. She was a teacher. She had lots of free time in summer especially. So then the drivers also drive home, and then she was onboarding them at home. So all kinds of stuff what was needed. And when we actually launched, we needed to get media coverage. So we just went through all the websites of all the media channels, and we put all the contacts of journalists into a big Excel sheet together with the phone numbers. And then when we sent out the press release, we called every single journalist in the list, and we didn't hang up the phone until they said that they will publish the news. So we didn't have any PR agency. We were just manually calling every single journalist. And we got the news really published. So it was one of the top news that Taxify launched in Tallinn with, 100 cars. So we did all these kind of things together with family. And then again, my mother was calling the Russian-speaking journalists. We were calling the Estonian-speaking journalists. So
can we get like a round of applause for Martin's parents really quick? Because that's like...
Yeah. So my parents are still not that much involved on a daily basis, but they still read all the news articles, they share it, they print it out, and whenever the news is in the newspaper, they buy it and they archive it at home. So they have a bunch of all the articles we have.
So cool.
So yeah. And when someone gives a bad comment to the news, then they take it really serious. Sometimes my mother can't sleep, so that.
Oh no.
So yeah, they are still really involved in their hearts.
Huh. It's kind of a super sweet thing of your parents to like.
So yeah, some family business, but.
Yeah, but human business. It's cool. What were the early days like for you guys, like, from an emotional standpoint? It must have been, because you had done a bunch of stuff. Markus, I guess, had been involved through the previous project you guys had done, but he would have been like, I don't know.
For him, it was actually still the first real company. I don't know, founding a company, hiring people, building a product, all of that was still very first time for him. So it was straight out of high school. It was the first real project, and he graduated in May from the high school, and then we launched in August. So, and the preparation time was about 6 months before that, so.
Was there a, like, doubt, or what was the roller coaster ride like in those early days of Taxify? Because it took you guys a while to get your footing a little bit, and even longer to really hit solid ground, I think. In the early days, was there ever a point where you're like, this is just getting to be ridiculous, we can't do this any longer, or?
No, I think Markus is a type of guy who never drops the ball. So he's, and as it's, when you're young, it's your first project, you are really eager to do and accomplish something. So I don't recall any moment where we had some kind of tough discussion and then saying that, let's stop it. It was always like, let's carry on and find ways how to solve problems, because when you are in startup, I think there is no day you don't see a problem. So it's constantly just a problem, find a way, solve it, next problem comes, solve it, next problem comes, solve it. Sometimes you have some good thing, maybe you do a sale or something else, then you, let's say, maybe you celebrate, the mood goes up a bit, but again, the next moment you face another problem and another problem, so it's constantly up and down. But yeah, I think it's the emotional thing should be really, really strong, so that you actually believe, you have a vision where you want to go, and you just stick to it and you work really hard.
And what was the first big break? Was there like a point where you're like, okay, full speed ahead, do you remember one of these early days that was really like, okay, today 1,000 drivers signed up, or this guy offered us money, or this thing worked? And
I think one of the big wins in Estonia was the first spring when we launched. We launched in August, probably in around October, or actually in September, we put up a job ad and wanted to hire the first developer in-house. And because the first prototype was really bad, it was built by a developer and it cost about 5,000–6,000 euros, and it really sucked, to be honest. It was really bad. So you imagine it was so bad that when you wanted to release a new software version to the server, all the ongoing rides on a platform were deleted. So you're driving in a car and then the system is restarted. Your ride is gone. So the driver doesn't see a ride and the passenger doesn't see a ride. So it was quite bad design. So, and then we got Oliver on board quite in September, and he rewrote the whole platform in about one month, 2 months time. So, and this taxi company story was that we were onboarding drivers, but we felt it was too slow. We thought maybe we should focus on the taxi companies and fleets, and we were trying to do sales, but none of them were really interested, and we didn't have a dispatch system as well. And then at some point, we met a taxi company, and we heard that yesterday, the radio that they used for dispatching the rides, the radio break down. And their dispatch lady was using mobile phone to call every single driver to dispatch rides. So it was really a pain in the ass. And we were thinking that, whoa, let's build a dispatch system. They said that how long it would take. Oliver said that I can build a prototype in 2 days. So over the weekend, they built a prototype. We showed it on Monday. And the guys looked like, okay, it looks quite decent. And they bought 50 smartphones for all their driver base. And they started using this dispatch system. And in 2 weeks, when they get repair parts of the radio, they were so used to the dispatch system, that they left the radio as a backup and they actually started using our platform as their core platform. So we got 100 drivers right away to the platform, basically like doubled or gave us a lot of boost of new drivers.
Oliver is an interesting character in my head. I'm kind of into startup lore a little bit, and Oliver is like this guy that's always, I remember when we got the first developer, but you don't hear about him so often. He's still in the company. He still plays a key role in the company, right?
Yes, he's now, actually from when we started hiring other developers, he said quite early on that I want to do coding and I don't want to lead the team. And he's now the chief architect. He's all hands-on in the coding. And on the second year, we hired the engineering team lead who is doing all the team management, the hiring, the discussions with the developers, the processes and all of that. So Oliver can fully focus on engineering, coding, that part, really the hands in the engine.
Super cool, actually. How did you find that? Like, how did you find that guy and know he was the guy that was gonna...
How did you find Oliver?
Yeah.
He applied, said that we actually didn't, I think he was probably the only guy even who applied to the job ad. But how we verified, he actually came and said that you are building a really cool stuff. He was doing also a web development company for about 5-6 years, so he was experienced, but he had realized that doing a service company, you can't scale it. You always have the limitation of how many people you have and how many hours you can sell. And that was his realization that he wants to join a product company. And the product company you can scale and sell thousands of copies or whatever. In platform case, the platform scales very well. So yeah, and he was coming and saying that I want to get 30% of stock. And it was quite ambitious. And we were hesitant maybe on the first or second meeting, but probably on the third meeting, he came with prototypes. He had already prototype of the driver app and the prototype of the customer app. So he didn't know Java, but he learned it in a few days. And he built the prototype and the backend server as well. And basically on a third meeting, he could demonstrate that I built the whole system and that's the demo part. And we saw that there's something into the guy. And probably we met few more times over the probably 2-3 weeks. And by that time, he had already built like half of the system. And then we negotiated a bit. And finally, he got more stock than I got. So, but looking back, I think it was definitely the best decision we had because I was doing it part-time. Yeah. Markus had the biggest part of the stock. I had little one, and then Oliver came in between us. And actually, that was really one of the best choices we have done. Because if he wouldn't join us with this very shitty outsourced platform, probably the company would have been dead by the Christmas. But as Oliver built a really good platform and it scaled well, it has helped us to grow like rocket.
So ship now.
Yes.
Find a developer who will ship now.
Yeah. So that's why I don't really believe in companies that doesn't have a technical co-founder. These companies are really, really in deep trouble. So you can try outsourcing, but if you really want to build a long-term product, then your product roadmap is never ending. It's always growing. So you're always fighting about which features to build. And if it's only outsourcing, I don't know. I can't recall any company that is truly successful with outsourced IT side. So I don't know, maybe you know any.
I want to like rapid fire through the craziness of the funding rounds because these stories are told a bit. But the first time you tried to raise money, success or fail?
The first 2 rounds in 2013, so we launched in August and we did the first angel round in February, about 6 months later. And it was mainly because we were just so popular in Estonian media. Everyone was like, we were growing quite nicely. Of course, the total numbers were small. We were probably doing about maybe 10,000 rides a month, which is basically almost nothing.
Okay.
But the media coverage was quite good, so angel investors were going with that hype, and then we were thinking that we were doing well. And the same in the end of the same year, we raised about 1 million, a little more. So first year we raised 1.2 million, and that after that 2.5 years we were really struggling to raise money. And I joined in October that year, and in December we raised this 1 million. And by March, we had spent half of the funding. So, and I took a whiteboard, I draw our funding, our runway, and our costs, and we saw that we had 3 months of runway. So I thought that we need to change something. So we expanded to Amsterdam right away. We were burning, let's say, 100,000 a month in Amsterdam and few other places, and the business didn't work. So we were in March, we were spent half of the funding. We didn't have a scalable business model. We had some revenues, but it was really small. And we already had about 15 people, and we had 3 months runway. So we decided to review the team. We got rid of probably 3-4 people. We took down the costs a lot. We almost quit from Amsterdam, or we actually quit from Amsterdam, and we started growing in the cities where the business were working, really step by step, and we managed to survive.
Huh. I want to come back around to the fact that Taxify is super efficient. So then you managed to get through these funding rounds, and then then there was even more. I understand that there was like years almost of trying to secure funding. Whereby
2.5 years.
By the time you got the deal closed, the company, you were like, well, the company is worth 50% more now, so why should we close the round?
Because we needed funding. If you look at ride-hailing industry, it's record-funded industry. So the whole industry has probably raised about $50 billion. So no other tech industry have raised that kind of funding. So Didi is number one, over 20 billion. Uber is also close to 20 billion. And the rest of companies, many companies have raised around 5 billion. So it's record funded. And if you don't have funding, you just grow so much slower. We were growing maybe 3 to 5% a month, but that's not, it takes so long to get the decent scale. So we really wanted to get funding, but in 2015-16, the mindset of the investors was really difficult. They were seeing that Uber is raising billions, and we are some unknown guys in Eastern Europe, and basically no money. Why should we succeed? Why even fund us? Because Uber will become the monopoly of the world, and no one can beat them. So basically, and that was the mindset during that time. And we managed to get about 300,000 of convertible debt during these 3 years, and maybe another 100 or 200,000 of small loans. So basically, but compared to the industry who was raising billions all the time, it was nothing. And then again, our organic revenues were growing as well, so we were constantly reinvesting them to new cities. And then, we managed to go through this cycle. And so the Eastern European model didn't work. And where we actually found the growth was from Johannesburg, so from Africa. So we suddenly went there, and this business started booming. Because in Eastern Europe, we just couldn't find cities where we have enough supply. In every city, we were really constrained of getting drivers. And when you don't have drivers, you can't scale the business. So. And in Johannesburg, at some point, we had like 10,000 drivers willing to join the platform. And then we couldn't train them fast enough. So we needed to hire people, and we did classroom trainings like that. Let's say 100 people at a time and 2 or 3 trainings per day. So we started training thousands of drivers per month. And then that city picked up. Then we saw that, whoa, Africa is good. We expanded to other African markets. And, but we did all that remotely because we didn't even have money for buying the flight tickets. So we hired people over Skype, and we hired operations manager. We didn't even hire like city managers. We hired just people to train drivers and launch the service.
And hired people over Skype. You hired the country managers over Skype, right?
I mean, we hired operations specialists first. Some guys, really young guys, maybe got 300, 400, 500 euros of salary, and just training drivers and launching the service.
So I just imagine being the guy on the other end of the tele when you call and say, hey, we're from Estonia. Would you like to open a new tech Taxify? Like, what was the pitch? How did you manage to... Because I even understand that some of these guys thought you were like fraud, kind of crazy dudes.
Yeah, some guys have done some fraud as well, but most of the guys were reasonable. And how we chose the guys was, of course, yeah, we were just saying that we are big in Europe and now we want to expand to Africa.
Okay.
We were not that big in Europe actually, but the pitch was good. So yeah, some of the guys were convinced to join, and how we chose the candidates was that one of the homework was the market research. So the guy who did best market research was probably the most knowledgeable and most eager guy. And then we hired them, and yeah, that's how it started.
So then let's jump to the two big ones. So then Didi came in.
Yeah.
And Didi said, Estonia is cool, and gave you guys some money.
So actually, Didi was the third investor in 1 year that we were discussing the funding. So two previous fund investors we actually turned down. So that because they gave us some investment terms, the term sheet, and they started doing due diligence, but we were growing quite fast now because Africa was growing really fast. So we were growing like 2, 3, 4 times in that 6-month period than they did the due diligence and agreement negotiations. We grew out of the valuation so much that it wasn't. We said that are you willing to improve your offer? And they said no. Then we take the next investor, and the same process, another 6 months, and they were again. So basically, one investor before Didi, we agreed that we raise $5 million, and we reached a certain level of rights. And we reached that certain level of rights in 4 months without the funding during the due diligence process. And we were saying that, guys, we were growing organically faster than with your funding. Maybe you improve your offer. They said they don't. And then I turned them down. And then Didi came, and they did fast, or they did high enough tender or offer that during their due diligence, we didn't reach that goal. So finally, our lawyers were really happy because they were doing 2 rounds of negotiations and due diligence, and they put it just in the paper hunt, all these packs of papers. And the third time we actually signed, when we signed, these guys were like, whew, finally some papers got to use.
Huh. Okay. And then jump to the future. And you grew a big horn on your head. And you're Estonia's next unicorn, or the newest one. So you raise $175 million. It's a lot of dollars. I don't think you take a lot of confetti guns to shoot that.
Yeah.
And things kind of continue. I asked you earlier, how have things changed? And you said, well, it's like the same, but faster.
Yeah, so I don't know, if I'm looking at the feeling, if we raise, whatever, 1 million or we raise 100 million, actually, my work days are still somewhat similar. I go to the office, I do my stuff, and just the numbers have been growing bigger. So every few months, I have to, change the payment limits of my accountant to do payouts to the drivers. Because they all the time hit the limits, so that we need to increase that. So the numbers getting bigger, but I mean the mindset is still all the time quite the same. So I haven't like looked at, whoa, big numbers. We still go to the office, do our stuff, and just try to build a good company and try to see what's important for the customers, what's important for the drivers, and how we get the best talent. So I think that's what we always have been doing.
So it's not like, okay, we're a unicorn now, we can like kick back, relax a little bit, calm down.
No, not really. So yeah, at least from my view, it's still quite the same. We try to do modest stuff, and we are still very careful on investing, so that you can't go crazy. It's very easy to burn all that money, but we are still very much looking at the ratios. So when we invest, what do we get out of every dollar? And so far, we have been still 5 or 10 times more efficient than any other platform in the ride-hailing space. So the investment ratio is still very, very efficient.
Yeah, so that was my next question, actually, because at TechChill, I think it was this year, you said you guys are the most efficient ride-sharing company in the industry, basically.
Yeah.
Does that remain the same after this huge round? And how do you kind of maintain that balance of being hyper-efficient and still having this giant pot of gold?
The efficiency, of course, a little bit goes down, but in general, it's still in the same ratio. So that, If we see that something is not working, then we are not investing more, but we are trying to figure out what is not working and what should we do to improve. So we had a good story in Latvia. So in this first year when we raised $1 million, we spent about 150 to 200,000 in Riga. And we did all kinds of crazy marketing, even one-to-one sales in shopping malls, installing Taxify app to customers' phones and showing how it works. But customers tried it once and they never came back. And we didn't understand that our service sucks. Our cars are bad, our drivers are bad. We just thought that we need to bring in people and invest in marketing. But so it took us about probably 6 months to understand that we need to improve the service, not do more marketing. And I think that's one of the main learnings we are still doing right now. So we have to see that if the business is not growing, then something is wrong with the value proposition. It's not that you're lacking money in marketing. It makes sense to do marketing only if the product is scaling well and people are happy and people are organically joining as well. So currently still the ratio is about 70% or 75% of people join organically and about 25% is actually paid marketing.
Huh. So your product can't suck if you want to do well.
Obviously, yeah.
A lot of cool things happen now. One of those experiments you talked about is scooters in France. You're like, scooters are cool. I like scooters. Everybody likes scooters. Let's do scooters. How did this come about?
I don't know. How many of you have tried electric kick scooters?
I have.
Yeah, I have as well. I see one hand, few hands. Okay. So actually, I was last week in Vilnius, and amazingly, a lot of people were using the electric scooters. So even in Tallinn, it's just I see maybe one a day.
Yeah.
So, but actually, technology has reached to a point that the electric kick scooters have reached to a price level of about $250 to $300, and the batteries are good enough to let you drive about 20 kilometers. And now we saw that it's something that maybe, and the big chunk of our rides in the cities also are below 3 kilometers. And that's the optimal distance that scooters can go, maybe 1 to 3 kilometers. So if you have big traffic jams in a city and the car needs to come and pick you up, and then you again in a traffic jam to get your destination, that is just not efficient. And so we thought that, okay, maybe scooters can solve this short distance rides and cars can solve the more longer ones. So we thought that we launched the scooter service in about 2 months, and then it's now second week we are seeing how it's going.
So it's only in Paris right now, correct?
Currently Paris, but we are very fast trying to expand it to other cities as well.
Can you say what the first cities might be?
Not yet.
Could you, hypothetically? No.
It's mostly European cities with warmer climate, so probably Eastern Europe is getting too much winter season already this year, so maybe next spring.
Okay, huh. And other cool things have happened. I think maybe it was from the show, but you've recruited Yevgeny Kabanov shortly after I interviewed him, and I wanted to take a little bit of credit that maybe I made Yevgeny famous.
Might be, but we knew him very well.
So what's it like to work with Yevgeny? For those of you who don't know, Yevgeny Kabanov founded and built and CTO'd and then CEO'd a company called Zero Turnaround, which exited and is rumored to be Estonia's second biggest exit after Skype. Just last year they exited. So he took a couple months off and now he's joined as Chief Product Officer at Taxify.
So yeah, Zero Turnaround is really, really technical product, and they help Java developers to build the code much faster. So and they have pretty good market share globally. So they were doing revenues of tens of millions of dollars. So
yeah, so one of the things that they made super possible was continuous deployment, so that you didn't have to shut everything down in order to update something. Yeah. So yeah, what's it like to now work with Yevgeny and have him on the team?
Yevgeny is a PhD in engineering, so he's a really smart guy. But he became as a chief product officer for us. We have constantly been struggling of hiring good product managers or product owners. And we believe that most guys working in product area, they are too narrow visioned. Mm-hmm. So, and we feel that actually being a startup founder probably is the best background of becoming a product manager, because you need to understand every single part of it. It's the finance, it's the operations, it's everything. So if you're a manager of one product area, you're basically, it's like your startup. And that's why we believe that Evgeny has built 2 good products in his company. So he has, in 10 years, he has done it all. He has hired people, fired people, and that's why he has a really, really good background of being the product guy in our company.
It must be an exciting hire. Really.
Of course,
Yeah.
of course.
Huh. And then another big piece of news, which is again kind of a rumor, is the idea that Taxify might be going through this rebranding cycle and considering changing the name. Can you confirm or deny this rumor?
Yeah, the honest answer is we don't know.
Yeah.
So we launched the scooters in France under the name of Bolt, because it would have been a bit funny to take Taxify and then drive on a scooter. Yeah. So we launched it as a product category called Bolt, but it's Bolt, not Volt, as the delivery company. So it's a Finnish food delivery company. It's called Volt.
So I can't get sushi from Taxify scooter?
Not yet.
Okay.
But yeah, so we're looking into opportunities. But what is clear is that we can't launch in UK under the name of Taxify, because it's just ancient laws in UK and France which are saying that you can't use taxi name when you're not operating taxis.
Yeah.
And we are not operating taxis, but we're operating the private hire cars. So actually there is no difference, but it's just 2 different legislation. They offer exactly same service, but the regulation is different, and you can't, yeah. So we were previously discussing that actually London is one of the most difficultly regulated market, and just 2 days ago I read from a newspaper that electric scooters are not prohibited in London, and it's coming from 183-year-old law which was regulating horse carriages. And the similar law currently prohibits launching electric scooters for commercial use. So you can imagine how traditional a country can be and how easy it is to do innovation in countries like that. So just 200-year-old law is prohibiting electric vehicles.
So a 200-year-old horse law keeps Taxify from driving scooters in UK?
Yes.
You're not completely unstoppable.
So yeah, what we need to do is just change that law.
Yeah.
How difficult can that be?
Yeah, it's one small thing, right? Yeah, I think we're getting close to wrap-up time. I want to give a couple minutes for Q&A. I wanted to ask you a little bit about, because you're super active in the Estonian startup ecosystem, you were heading up the Startup Leaders Club, and you're still really active. I mean, you founded...
Actually, last 5 years, I have been very little active. I focused only on Taxify. But before that, I was more active, and now I'm getting a bit back to active.
Okay. I wasn't around for the whole period, but... Anyways, you're very supportive of the ecosystem, I would say then, and now more active and previously active. Founded Garage 48 and these kind of projects that seem really dedicated to the development of new startups, or in a kind of selfless way, at least from surface level. I don't know, you seem like an okay guy. What do you think this kind of bridge that Lift99 is trying to build, and by expanding especially into Central Eastern Europe, because that seems to be Ragnar's vision, and Lift99's mission has really been like build these bridges, make voices heard. Do you think that this can have real impact? Like, what is your opinion on the whole shebang?
I really like what Ragnar is doing, and I'm even in my heart, I'm a little bit sad that I have focused so much on Taxify, that I would have really wanted to come and help him earlier on this Lift project in Estonia, and also taking it abroad. So I would have been happy to be a co-founder of Lift, but I'm not, because I was working really full focus on Taxify. But now, I really want to help him to take it to Eastern Europe, and that's why I'm here today as well. So I think it's a really good vision, because we see that countries need very good role models to actually push founders to the next level. So you can do a great thing, but if the ecosystem and the network is not strong, you might have trouble. And, or it just takes so much longer to get off the ground. So that's why I think that Estonia, due to Skype accident, is very little bit ahead maybe of the other countries. Our ecosystem is a bit more developed, and I think it's now our obligation to share that knowledge and the know-how to other Eastern European countries and actually mentor and give all the tools. We have the Rocket Fuel scholarship for young people who want to learn stuff and then get mentoring and all of that. So I'm supporting all of these initiatives and opening a co-growing space like that, doing constantly good quality events, bringing people from abroad, and actually, I don't know, one thing is the giving the talk, but it's actually much more important to actually take half an hour or 1 hour and focus on your specific questions. What are you struggling with? How can my experience help you? Maybe I have contacts that are useful to you. So all of these kind of things on a grassroots level help a lot. So these talks are good as well, but this is just for motivation. But really spending time one-on-one and helping the entrepreneurs, that's what the real value comes from. So whenever someone comes here, we should do office hours and really spend at least an hour, maybe if you have bigger problems, maybe a few hours of solving specific questions and digging into your specific business challenges. And that's where the value comes from.
Well then, I'll just say this, because I just want to clarify that what Martin says is very true about Lyft, but even maybe equally so about Martin, because as a first-time founder myself, nobody has been more easily accessible, other than maybe Lift99 Ragnar have been on the same level, but Martin has been exceptionally open to having lunch with a random Canadian dude who ended up in Estonia somehow. So I just want to say thank you so much for that. And then I want to jump right into the Q&A, because Martin seems passionate about it. Do we have one more mic? Is that possible?
Or I can run around with Mike.
That's my job. Here.
Thank you for a very inspiring story, especially the beginning stage was very interesting, with help of your family. The question is how you convinced investors that a small company from Eastern Europe could compete with Airbnb from USA?
Okay, so the question is how we convince investors to invest in us. So I think, of course, as every startup, the first thing is the team. So I think if you meet Markus, you need probably 15 minutes of understanding that he's probably the best founder you can see in Europe. So it's probably the next Mark Zuckerberg of Europe. So I think that's one of the main things you can see. And then all the business and execution and all of that comes after that. So we are by far the most efficient company. So if there are still any investors that want to join the ride-hailing space, then if they think that they would put their 10 million in Uber or 10 million in Taxify, we can probably guarantee them 10 times more returns from Taxify. So because we are just growing so much faster. The other thing is the cost efficiency, so that every dollar we invest, we can get so much more value out of it, because the whole company mindset is built really, really cost efficiently. So as we didn't have the money, we needed to grow a company with very cost efficient mindset. If you look at the global guys, they had billions of dollars, basically unlimited funding, and they could hire everyone. Salary was never a question. Office cost was never a question. They could hire every consultant they wanted. They could do everything they wanted. They could throw money to drivers. They pay £1,000 of referral fee to the driver in London. You imagine how much money they have spent. So we haven't done that, and we have always found a way how to do things more efficiently and without this kind of big money. So I think that mindset gives us much bigger, longer-term edge. Our cost base, running a business in every city, is probably about twice less than the other guys. And that allows us to charge lower commission, and that's bringing us to the drivers. If we charge lower commission, drivers makes more money from the same ride. And when the platform that has most drivers will get also most customers. And that's what we have proven in many countries where Uber has been market leader. We have taken over the market in 1-2 years just because of better terms. Drivers like us and customers follow the drivers. So, and even with the lower commission, we can still make money because we are so efficient. So I think that's the longer term secret, and that's what we sell also to the investors.
So then the answer is short and sweet, is if you think that there is a rule that Eastern European companies or European companies or whatever don't get funded, then you need to act in a way that makes you an exception to that rule. And that means being an exceptional founder and being efficient or focusing more on the user or whatever those things are that make your company good enough that you have...
Find really good guys to join you. So, of course, people make the company grow. You can't do anything on your own. You need good people constantly. So I think we have like 200 job ads on the website, and we are also planning to open the development hub in Kyiv to actually hire some developers here.
Let's get a mic here, and while the mic moves, so you're opening the hub in Kyiv, and what is the idea or the mentality around what is the hub?
Hub means that we already have one hub in Bucharest. It's the first hub outside of Tallinn, and these guys are working on maps and map-related products. Mm-hmm. And now every hub we open somewhere, this team will probably have a focus of some area.
Okay.
And we are considering that maybe the scooter engineering team could become to Kyiv, so that if you want to build something cool around scooters and the scooter product of Taxify, mm-hmm. then you can share the word and apply if you want.
I have two questions. First of all, when just beginning, you understand you will be a global.
I'm going to come around so I can't. It's hard when you're behind the speakers. Can you say the question again?
Okay. When you just a beginning, mm-hmm. you are understand that you will be a global company.
So when do we become global?
Yeah. When you just beginning.
I think it's. I initially thought that I'll do a business for Estonia and maybe Baltics. So if we do, let's say I was imagining we can do 100,000 rides in Tallinn, and we charge 50 cents per ride. That's about 50,000 euros. And if we have 3 guys in a company, it's quite a decent business. That was my initial business plan. Okay. But of course, we have grown out of it a few times. So I think second strategy was first strategy was to become provider in the Baltics. Second was in Eastern Europe. And the third one was to become global when we actually founded the growth in Africa. So I think it was around 2016 where we thought that, okay, we have really potential to grow a global company.
Okay, and the second one, it's that necessary for just young startup look like global when they try to find real investors? Because I always hear about global, about billion market, about you need to be a global, you must found the global scalable problem. But what about a million local market? They grow much more faster than global. And you understand the mental of this market. I have local solution, and I confused because I always hear about, are you global?
Okay.
I just wanted to say that in Estonia, I think when we talk about, I shouldn't say we maybe, but when the guys who have really done the thing talk about building global from the beginning, it's not necessarily to discredit the value of local companies or to say that those companies don't have merit in their own right. But if you want to grow a global company, you need to think about growing a global company.
Yeah, I think it starts with small things, maybe even having the working culture or working language in English. That was one thing I pushed from the start. So Markus started initially doing some internal documents or even product specification in Estonian. I said it basically on the second week that let's switch to English. So because when you want to scale, the easier you think about that, the easier the scaling will be. But of course, I think being global a little bit depends on what business you are in. If you're doing a web-based service, then customers can come first day from Brazil, Japan, Africa, and US, then you can be global from day one. If you look at our business, we use internet for communications, but our business is really local. We can't scale global right away. We need to take one city by another city by a third city. So we just can't think that, okay, let's be global, and then I can't launch in 500 cities because I don't have the organization for that and all of that. So we needed to grow country by country, city by city, and then raise funding for the amount that we felt is doable and we can execute. So of course, I would say that in 2015, we could have easily grown faster if we would have got the funding faster. But we couldn't get funding, so we needed to grow slower and maybe by that time even invent more efficient operations model. So it really depends on your business. But of course, aim high. So I think Markus have been always dreaming of building something really big. So yeah, you should aim high.
You can clarify one thing if you want, yeah.
All time you explain this strategy for investors, right? When you started.
Good question. I'm not sure that the first angel round we did in Estonia, we said we want to be global. I think for them we said that we need 70,000 euros to expand to 5 countries. So, and then the next round we said that with this 1 million, we plan to expand to 10 countries. And so it still goes step by step. You can't say that I raise $1 million and I go global with that because no one believes you. You need to grow step by step. And when you promise something to the investors and they see that you deliver it, then they give you more money. It's just a question of how fast you can execute. Some companies raise money every 6 months and the valuation grows, 10 times every 6 months. So it really depends how fast you can execute.
So we have one right here.
All right, thank you so much, first of all. So I have a question. First of all, when you decided to go global and when you decided to go outside of Estonia, you already have competitors in the market. What was the strategy to struggle against your already existing competitors such as Uber and Duklon, as already mentioned? And what is the unique value proposition that you have compared to the other companies in this sphere? Thank you.
So basically it was about expansion and about differentiation from competitors.
And unique value proposition, because apps, for me as a user, it looks quite similar.
Actually, if you think, then everyone knows Uber currently. But 5 years ago when we started, Uber was a US company and they opened their first city in Paris in 2013. So we didn't even know about Uber when we started. So, and if we look at the Baltic states, there was one app in Lithuania. There was no apps in Estonia, no apps in Latvia, no apps in Finland, no apps in Sweden, in Russia. I'm not sure. Maybe Yandex was there, but it was too far for us. So the countries we started, there was no competition. We were the first app to launch. So we just thought that, we launch and we build a business and there was no competition, app-wise. There was, of course, traditional taxi companies were the competition. But when we reached Lithuania, we actually start feeling the competition first time because the local player was big and also the taxi industry was really not welcoming. Our employees first week in Vilnius got SMS, you are not welcome here, get out. And your life is threatened. So things like that happen. But we didn't stop, we carried on and I think by now we are the market leader also in Lithuania. So that's about the expansion side. But differentiation, I would say it's also the culture. The whole company is really entrepreneurial and cost efficient. So that's one thing, because we just didn't have the luxury to have money. So everything we do, even new employees, when they come, they put together their own chairs, their own tables. That's how we started. It wasn't so that we were really doing everything. When the guys came in, everything did whatever they wanted or whatever we needed to do. So I have put together chairs and so on, and I still do. So if I need to take the mic to a guy asking a question, I can do it. So I think that's the mindset. Otherwise, we always try to put the drivers first so that we are not that greedy. We think that building a sustainable company can be also with the lower commissions. We feel that maybe some of the competitors are charging a bit too much, and that's the differentiator. We believe that in order to build a sustainable company, drivers need to make enough money to actually continue. If they make too little money, they will quit the job and we don't have the drivers. So I think that one thing, and the other is regulatory as well. So we really try to cooperate with the regulatory authorities. We try to explain how we operate. We try to share the best practice, and if the law is maybe outdated, we try to explain how we think the law could be renewed, and try to explain the best practices, because these people might not know about it or might not think about it. So maybe some of the three things that are different from the others.
You want to keep going?
Yeah, why not? I don't know. Do we
You
need
have
to
water
finish?
next to you as well, by the way.
Okay.
On the right side.
Thanks.
Next one? Yeah, go ahead.
Good evening, my name is Andrei Kubai. I'm very thankful for sharing the story of your success. I guess many of us would like to get the insights and would like to know how it is. However, I do believe that you learn from your own mistakes the most, and everyone does. And this brings me to the question itself. What was the biggest mistake in your life, and what did you learn from that? Thank you.
I hope not hanging out with me.
So biggest mistake of my life was the question. That's the good question. Looking back, before doing Taxify, I always did multiple projects same time. So even when I worked at Skype, I started my own small startup on the side. When we started Taxify, I was also working at Fortumo the first year. So and I did like 2-3 companies, and also volunteer work on society stuff, doing Garage 48 and all of these things. And when I saw 15 years working hard and I haven't actually achieved much financially, I was thinking that, okay, what's wrong? And when I look at my university, like guys from the same course, the guys who actually had focused on one thing and did that very well, they were much more successful. Their companies were bigger and so on. And then, when I finally then joined Taxify, I decided to drop everything and focus only on Taxify. So as I said earlier, I stopped working on garage things. Ragnar was still continuing, but I stopped and I only focused on Taxify. So maybe that has been the biggest learning, that if you really want to achieve something, you should really do it 150%. And it's nice to do many things. And I think my personality also is about doing many things. But just if you really, really want something, focusing it would probably bring you better results than doing many things same time. I don't know, was it good enough?
I think that was a really good answer, actually. I tried to be really quiet because I want to use the clip afterwards. It's really, like, do you feel that, I feel a lot of people who are keen on the startup world or find themselves drawn into that have that mentality, and that's part of what makes them crazy enough to do the cool stuff, is that you want to do everything at once. Have you been able to like remedy this in Taxify by creating like micro roles for yourself? I mean, there's a billion things to do at Taxify. So have you been able to like put yourself in enough roles that your brain is like, okay, this is enough for me to do? Or how were you able to remedy that issue of like needing to do a million things at once, I guess is the question.
I think it's definitely a weakness, or even within Taxify, I get really excited of some new projects. So I'm quite bad at doing routine things. So yeah, whenever I get some new idea, I get really excited about it. I try to do it really fast within few days, maybe get it going, and then try to give it to some people who can actually take it forward. So that, because I know that I'm not the routine guy to take it too long. So, but again, in some things you need to do constantly, even, I don't know, doing one-on-one discussions with the team and things like that. So this one I try to think calmly and then do these things, but yeah, when I feel that I need more motivation, then I try to get some new initiative going, and then
Scooters.
Yeah. something, yeah, whatever. Currently, we actually have a big problem that we don't have a decent intranet or knowledge base in the company. So I'm thinking that I need to kick off that project and
knowledge.
I mean, like a wiki or something that you find easily all the information you need. So
Okay.
I think the information is all scattered around in different Google documents, and for a new joiner, it's difficult to. There is no good landing page. I go there and I find all the information, whatever I need. We don't have that, so.
Interesting. Yes?
So
You're
it's not a
next.
secret.
Yeah, sure.
Sorry. It's not a secret that a lot of drivers, taxi drivers, are cheaters. So they're trying to cheat the company. The Uber and other startups have almost the same problems across the countries. So my question is how you are fighting with the fraud or with the cheating, how you build the system, because it can cost you a lot of money
What are they doing?
from them.
So, yeah, it's a good question of driver cheating. So drivers can do all kinds of things. So they are really, really creative. I don't know. From technology side, some guys even buy applications that mess up their GPS to just make the route longer. So that's one thing. But you can also do whatever other things, like more simple things. I don't know, start the ride earlier. When you quit the car, they don't stop the ride, they carry on. So there are tons of ways you can cheat the customer. So we try to educate, we train every driver, and we usually say that we have zero tolerance for these kind of things. And then when we get some feedback about the incident, then we really look into it. If it's serious, then we ban the driver, and we don't give them a second chance. If it's something more lighter, we give them second chance and then a very hard warning, and it quite easily shows if the person actually is there to be long term and actually to help the company and to make money for themselves, or they are just there for the short term and whatever. So it is a difficult problem, and we have people in every team to deal with it, but unfortunately there are. If you look at the whole society, it's always 5 or 10% of people who are more cheaters, or even few percent who are criminals. So yeah, trying to find a way how to get around them, and then build systems to also maybe deploy some artificial intelligence to try to see driver patterns, and if the driver is behaving, let's say, in a bad way, then maybe even ban them before they can ruin your company image or ruin some of the customer experience. So this is the thing that we are looking into, of course.
Let's do 2 more questions. One is this one right here, because he's been
Yeah,
waiting
first
a
of all, I
while.
would like to thank you for coming, and also welcome to Kyiv. It's great to have Taxify here, and it's kind of, I would say it's third app here, right? Because there are lots of apps in every city, I'm quite curious how many cities you can count as where you are leader.
So
And second question would be, what are the top 10 cities?
top 10.
Yeah.
Okay, that's so. Okay, the first question was, can you recall?
The first question is,
Numbers.
which cities are you actually number
Okay,
one in?
which cities? I would probably say that most. Okay, not in all cities we are number one, but we're leading most of the African cities. So Nairobi, Lagos. In Johannesburg, it's quite 50-50. And then Baltic states, we are leading everywhere, and few Eastern European cities as well, I think. Might be Bucharest and a few others. So in Poland, Ukraine, we are still early stage and investing a lot. And top 10 cities, probably, I don't know, in terms of rides, it's still the African big cities. Is definitely probably top 5 are in Africa. And then Paris, Warsaw, Bucharest, whatever, Baku. These are the bigger cities we were.
So if you're building a competitor, maybe go somewhere else. One more.
Yeah, I can do that. Yeah.
Let's do this guy, and then I'll let you in.
Okay.
Hi. Thank you for the inspiring story. My question is somehow connected with the previous one. How do you decide where to go next, and how did you even get the idea to go to such places as South Africa? Who was the initiator, and how did you get it?
I think South Africa somewhat came as an accident or not really planned. So we were growing on an okay speed in Eastern Europe, but we were struggling to get the fast growth. And so we're trying to do different bets in different cities to just put up Facebook ads and maybe €50 budget per city and just advertise that, do you want to join Taxify as a driver? And we were measuring which cities then drivers sign up and what's the price of the lead. And we had multiple steps of the sign-up process. And we were also monitoring to which step the drivers actually signed up. So if the drivers were signing all 5 steps, it showed that these drivers are really eager to join. If they only maybe did the first step of email address and maybe second step of, I don't know, their car details, then the eagerness was less. And somehow we managed to try South Africa, and the results were like crazy. So basically drivers tried to, whatever, email us and come here and then save us from Uber or something. So basically they were really, really eager to join, and that's how we ended up expanding to Africa. So yeah, initially that wasn't initially very planned. And the other thing is how we choose cities now. After this African expansion, before that we were choosing cities in Eastern Europe. We thought that we want to be the regional player. But after finding the Johannesburg explosion, so we started looking at the bigger opportunities which are still open. So the cities that the best city for us was one competitor, which is close to monopoly. The market is well established. The regulation is open enough to get enough drivers. And what else? And yeah, the competition is reasonable, and people can afford taxi rides, so the prices are good enough. So I would say these kind of things are the main ones. So, and then if you compare opportunities, launching a really big city and launching a smaller or mid-sized city is roughly same amount of effort. You need to hire first few people, you need to get an office, you need to train drivers, and you need to launch the service. So based on that, we prioritize just bigger cities because the opportunity is that much bigger. And yeah, we have a big Excel sheet of many cities where we just look at these criteria and we decide when to launch which city. And now, of course, our main focus still is Europe and Africa. So we try to expand in this region now. We don't plan to go to Asia or US because there are regional, very well-funded companies, and the competition is very difficult. So yeah, that's the current strategy.
Let's take the one last question.
Yeah, thanks. I guess everyone in this room is dreaming about building their own unicorn. So my question is, what are the key metrics and characteristics of your company that you were able to achieve to get this $1 billion valuation? Is it like 30% month-over-month growth that you are sustaining for like several years? So what are the key factors that that's helped you to achieve that valuation?
So what are the key factors for growth, for success?
Why are you worth $1 billion?
I would say that if you want a short or a long answer, I think the short answer is Markus. It's the founder. That's because if I would have been the founder, the company would probably be much different, and I'm not sure we would have reached that goal. So I think the company is very much the face of the founder. So yeah, if the founder is really inspiring, hardworking, smart, doing right bets, then the company can grow. I think it's also why Facebook is that successful, or why Google is that successful. I think it still goes down to really the 1 or 2 or 3 founders. So yeah, I think they they really drive it. And the second things around it is already timing, product, team, competition, all of these things. But I would say that, yeah, the capability of the founder is most important.
Yeah, but my question was about numbers, like metrics. Can you share some numbers, like growth, percentage of your month-over-month growth or stuff like that?
Yeah, I was saying that first few years we were growing, let's say 3, 4, 5% a month, maybe some months 10%. But after this African expansion, I think the slowest growth month have been about 10% and the fastest have been 35. So about 1.5 years, constant growth, 15, 25, 30% month on month. So yeah. So now it has been slowing a bit, maybe 10, 15% a month, but we're still keeping quite a good growth.
Martin, Villig, thank you so much for coming to Kyiv. Thank you, LIFT99. Thank you to Veriff. And thank you to Kyiv. How cool is it to be here? Awesome. Go enjoy your lovely evening of food and drinks. You guys stuck around to the end. Man, they can't get enough.
Thank you all for coming, and I'm really hopeful for the great space that Ragnar is building here. So I think that you come to the events and also demand great speakers here. So Ragnar has lots of contacts, I have contacts. Just demand it. Ask which guys you want. Maybe you want Mark Zuckerberg to come here. Let's just make it work.